Hello and welcome to another free code session. My name is Jason Bach and I am happy. I'm really happy because I finally conquered this nullable, non-nullable reference type stuff in C#8 for rocks. In fact, last night I finally got all tests to pass and I did like a whoo, and I was upstairs in my living room after my kids went to sleep and my wife and I were just sitting in the living room, and I did that, and I was sitting in the reclining chair and she was sitting in the couch and she was like, "Dear God, you scared me." I did that. But I was happy because, I've been for a while now trying to get this to fully work, and I kept going down a path, and then I would solve some problems, and then I'd have to solve some others and find others, and I just kept I could never get back out. And now I feel like I'm finally out. All tests pass. In fact, let me just prove it to you all. And have these tests pass. So I got 812. And one of the things, what I'm going to do is ramble a little bit about some stuff and talk about what I did to address this and some things I still need to write some tests and debate an issue in my head. But yeah, hopefully if this all goes... And it did. Again, I will beat this over the head, especially with people that are like, "I don't need to write tests. Tests are stupid. Tests take too much time." Blah, 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 blah. If I didn't have tests for this, I would have never found as many errors as I did. So I don't want to hear anybody talking about, "Well, I don't need to raise my tests. Tests are taking," just shut up. All right. Yeah, I'm actually in a very good mood, but it's a Saturday night, I'm tired. My family, my older son is over at a friend's house, and so my younger son and one of his friends, we went to our local Mexican restaurant downtown, Pablo's, and I had the queso burger, and so I'm a little tired, I think, because after having a beer and that food, a little sleepy, but I have to do this because I even woke up this morning and I was happy. But one specific test, and I don't know if I've mentioned this one before or not, but this one is a really good exercise because this basically looks for where object resides, doesn't matter where, and then just tries to get all the types from it and create persistent mocks for it. And that's always a good stress test. There's things that I found, in fact, if I go to my notes here, you can see that I got down to one error, which was this test, but it had 855 diagnostic warnings / errors. And so I started piling through them and driving through them and getting it down and down and down. And then finally I figured out how to do it and got to 0 errors, which felt really good. So before I talk a little bit about what I did to solve this, just as a complete tangent, but my kids, and by my kids I mean my older son, who's 14, he keeps kind of harping on getting an actual desktop computer in our house. We don't have that. I have my laptop that I have for work, which is a pretty nice workhorse. It, does the job and then some, which is good. And then I have a side monitor over on the screen. People talk about people having like 4 or 5 monitors. I've never had that. Maybe it's one of those things that once I have it, I can never go back. But for what I do at home, this has been more than sufficient. So, and also the setup, you can't see it obviously, but there's right over here, this side of me, there's a desk that has a wall thing here. And so even if I wanted a big monitor, I'd have to kind of move over here. I'd have to get either take this whole shelf thing off and have that all open, and then, which wouldn't be that big of a deal, but I don't know. I kind of like the way it's set up in here. So anyway, my wife uses an iPad and my kids have phones, but we don't actually have a computer because we really haven't needed one. And I haven't bought one in a long time, but he wants to learn how to program, which I don't doubt, but he also wants it for video games. And I think what he really wants it for is he wants to play with VR. So whatever, I finally decided to say, let's start looking at how much one would cost. And I had a number in my head and thinking, like, from what I knew of years gone by, it wasn't a tech thing. I mean, obviously I know you can get terabyte storage easily on these really small SSDs. It's insane. And 32 gigs of memory on machines and all this stuff. But looking at what I kind of have as a price in my head and what you can get for that these days, it just blew my mind. It's like, holy cow. That's just, and if I, really wanted to go all out and like double that I can't even imagine what kind of a machine I could buy for that. So it's just really impressive what you can do with tech. So I didn't buy one yet, but I just thought that was really cool. So speaking of tech, what did I do to solve this? The problem was with all this is trying to handle types that were nullable, had nullables within them, and if they're arrays and then generics, and it just got to be a mess. And I had been primarily looking at an article by John Skeet, which, do I have that up here? No, not H.N. Skeet. This is like one of the only articles, and I may have shown this in a previous episode, one of the only articles that's really looking at, of course, it's John, of all people, would be diving into stuff like this, but seeing this whole nullable attribute thing that really doesn't exist and only shows up in your emitted assembly. And quite frankly, I thought I saw something in GitHub where they were talking about making this a concrete type, which I am extremely a champion for. They better do it, because if you don't have that, trying to figure out what these do. In fact, there's one thing I found that John doesn't even mention in here, is he just didn't even see it. And I tweeted it to him. He was like, "Oh, I didn't even think of that," or something of that nature. So, so it's complicated because there is no base type, and you have to rip through the nullables constructor, and is it a byte or a byte array, and if it is there and it isn't, it's just a mess. Okay, so what I landed on with this is this thing called a nullable context. Okay, and actually thought about this when I was driving kids around this morning. Like, why? Oh, yeah, because in those cases, so here's the other thing. There are cases where I just need the name of a type, and I don't care about a nullable context. I don't care about, are you a parameter? Are you a return value? I just want your type name, because there's definitely cases in my code where I need that. Though I'm kind of curious now, do I ever call that? Yeah, I do in type extensions. Okay, so there are still cases. There are still cases where I do this. Okay. So in any event, but there are definitely cases where I need to pass in like a parameter. Yeah, that's actually the case I have to worry about right now. There are other cases where this could come into play, but what I need for rocks, this is the only one I have right now. And so what I do is I create this nullable context off of a parameter info. And if you don't, I just use an empty byte array. Okay. And so nullable context, what I did, and I played around with this design. I had it as an immutable design for a while, but that got to be unwieldy because as you're getting a type name, and if you have generic arguments, you go through the generic arguments. Those generic arguments may need to get type names, and then they may have generic arguments. So you kind of ping pong back and forth, and that context has to be the same one because it needs to give you the next flag based on what order you're going in. If you read this article from John, he kind of describes it in terms of you start with this, you go to the list, then you go to the string. If you go to the next thing, which was a string array, you got to look at the array being nullable first and then the string. There's kind of an order to this. Hold on. My wife's like, I have to sleep, I'm tired. And our son is going to be coming home soon from an afternoon/evening of D&Ding. So anyway, so you have to kind of ping pong back and forth, and you have to go in the right order and all this other stuff. So I decided just to make it a reference type, and then that one just keeps its own state, so it's mutable. Not the greatest design, but for what I do in rocks, it's sufficient and it works. At least everything works now, at least from what I can tell. So you pass in a parameter info. And this is one thing too, I just actually, Saturday, I was working on some of this stuff, and I have a talk on Wednesday for Open Source North, which I've done already this year. I'm going to be doing in other places, C#8. And so I was thinking about this non-nullability and then C#8. I'm saying here, see, non-nullability is in part trying to remove null reference exceptions, but it's also trying to be clear about your intent. My intent here is that this parameter and this parameter, they should not be null. If I wanted them to be null, I would do something like this and saying it's okay if you pass me in a null. Of course, then why would I throw an exception if it was null? That would be kind of stupid. So the problem is that code may not be using this non-nullability, and so they may still be passing in a null. And so I think I'd still have to check this. And I thought I've been seeing in some GitHub things fly by when I've been researching this stuff, some attributes I think are like assert true or something about non-nullability here. But really, maybe at least in my mind, I'm thinking at some point, if you're using non-nullability and you do something like this, you're basically saying this shall not be null. And so instead of me doing this, just automatically kind of infer that from this. And I know that gets into code contracts and pre and post conditions, but I think you still have to be defensive here. But it is clear that you were expecting a non-nullable value at that point. So in any case, I get all the nullable flags. So how do I get the nullable flags? You can see from the code here, I basically say if you're not a value type, then, though I'm not sure about this, could you have a non-nullable type, or could you have a value type that has generic arguments? And those generic arguments could be reference types. So I'm not quite sure that this is correct. I'm going to actually put that as a note here. Right over here. And this is good while I'm doing this. Is it possible that a struct with generic arguments that could be null have to there. Okay, so I'll come back to it. It's obviously nobody's doing that yet because otherwise I would have ran into it, but I should just make sure, write a test and see if that happens. So I look, again, if it was just a real attribute type, this would be simpler than just doing these stupid string checks, but, got to do what you got to do. And then this is actually a kind of an interesting case of where this switch comes into play. Kind of like it because I can say, hey, if you're an array, if it's true. This is a little weird, but this is the only way I could see getting all the values out as an array. Otherwise, if it's not, just take the one value that's in there and shove it into an array. Otherwise, return array empty. Not sure if that's even, well, I may just get rid of this outer if statement. But anyway, so then I have the array in your current index, and then I'll just say, get your next state. Now, this could be an enumeration. I mean, in some ways, this can be, but it's not something you do like a for each on and then just go through your values because, again, as you're ping-ponging back between the type name and the generic arguments, which may also need to get type names, and those need to get generic arguments, doing an iterator over that could be done, but you couldn't do a for each on it, I think. You'd have to kind of handle the iterator explicitly. So, yeah, I'm doing it this way for now. Maybe some kind of an iterator or enumerator would be the right thing to do because that's kind of what it's doing here. And so I basically say, hey, you may not have any, so then you're just going to say, hey, it's not nullable for now. Otherwise, get the flag at that index, update your index. And this is also something I have to debate, which is the way I'm using this in code, I should never go beyond the bounds of the array. In other words, I should never call get next state too much. So I'm kind of wondering if I should throw an exception here in some cases, if I call it too many times. I'm not sure yet. That's something I still am debating in my head. But that's what I do. I can always check the count. So in places where I use this is something like getting the full name. And in retrospect, the way I implemented this before is kind of nice because I can do it to sneak in getting because you have to do the array first. So I could get the array flag if it is an array, and then determine if I put the question mark there. Then I also get the type flag, because you have to do that next. And now I get stuck in the back here. But then notice I'm also passing that context and they get generic arguments, because that also needs to use the context, because for those generic arguments, you need to get the full name of those, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So all of them come out now just fine, which is nice. So at this point, as you can see, I've got some notes still. I keep coming there. There's actually, this was interesting because I updated the 2019 preview to whatever the latest is. And if you go look at my errors, there's like 154 message, but a couple new ones popped up. So kind of skipping all the ones that are in test, just want to look at the ones that are in rocks. Okay. Actually, I could just filter it here, right? Let's see. Show me all the ones in rocks. Why does it say 10 and then there's only 2 in the list? Doesn't make a lot of sense here. Whatever. One of them was this, where I was actually getting the results of a compilation emit. I don't know if I have a space there. But I never did anything with the value. And then I said, well, wait a minute, what about the persistence compiler? Because that also should have... now, it wasn't doing this. Okay, I was actually... I put that in there, and it hasn't come back up. It doesn't notice that it's not being used. And I'm not sure why. So, yeah. And yeah, so weird one. Like, it doesn't complain about that one. But in any event, it caught this. It wasn't doing that before. And then this... Oh, really? Oh. It's unused. I was using it before, but I don't need it anymore. Okay, cool. Thank you, code analysis. I wish more people would be using that, because you sometimes just forget to clean things up. Actually, I'd like that to be a warning, because if it's see, in that case, it was just an informational message. But, hey, I'd actually like to know about these things. Stop me and tell me, why am I doing that? In any event. So that's one thing I do have to clean up. And what I might just do is do like what I do in the parsing, is if I have any diagnostics, throw my compilation exception and just say, hey, at that point, something really bad happened. So we should stop. So what I'm doing basically right now is going, okay, I got to do some cleanup here. I got to fix that. I also got to do some tests for knowable context. And as you see, I've got some questions outstanding to solve, and then the full name and get generic arguments. I'm thinking I should also have tests around those. Maybe not in terms of the specifics of the names when you have nullables in them. Definitely knowable context and probably those two. At least not tests to test all the cases, but just to make sure that if I have a nullable thing or nullable thingies and a big thingy, that I handle it correctly. Okay. So, all right. Let's just kind of do a couple tests here. Let's close all this. Come back and bring that up. So I was kind of putting some tests in here. This is the only way, by the way, I could find to say, hey, call this, and yes, damn it, pass it in. It's okay. Because I got to somehow get my error to come back. So now I'm just going through all the different scenarios in my head. This is one of them, by the way, is that you can get a flag in the case where you have a value type array. It's still an array, so that is a reference type, even though this is an int. So what it does, it gives you this back, and it says, oh, that's okay. That can be a 1. That's not nullable. But the int is a 0. But what does a 0 mean? Does it mean don't care? Does it mean it's a value type? Like these flags, there's no definition as far as I can tell for them. I can't find where this is actually. I've looked through the CLR code, the Roslyn code, everywhere. I can't find what these flags actually really mean. So I'm kind of guessing a little bit. I'd really like this to be documented. If they're not going to make the type a concrete type that you can actually reflect upon, then please just document the things so that these things are well known. To do anything with reflection, even if you're not doing code generation like this, to do anything with reflection with non-nullable reference types in C#8, this has to be done. This has got to be a requirement to have documentation on how nullable attribute works. So in any event, I'm just starting to write some tests around this, so trying to cover all my bases. What do I want to do? So I have that, I got that. Reference type, event type, value type. And this is just to get all the flags. So do I get a case where I only get one back? Yeah, just when you have a reference type, whether it's null or not. It doesn't matter if it's null or not. I just want to make sure that I'm getting a decent value back. Actually, there is... I just came up with a complex one. This is for my C#8 demo code. And we're basically showing, hey, I need a reflection on this stuff. So what happens if I have something? Well, I'm just going to copy this because why not? When in doubt, just copy code wherever possible. I'm just going to say complex type. And yes, bring in all the generics. So what do I get for this? Get context for a complex type. Okay, that would be that. That would be that. Oh my God, how many would I get? Oh, this will be cute. So that one, and we do the first one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7? Let's just see what 7 gives us. And let me go back to debug. Did that pass or fail? Did you even run? Did you even run? Did. I guessed right. Okay. Well, we're going to need 7 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2. Okay, let's see if I can figure this out. So the first one is going to be a 1. The next one's going to be a 2. And that's going to be a 1. That one's going to be a 1. It's going to be a 1, that's going to be a 2, and that's going to be a 1. Oh, no, I was wrong. Next, say 3. Really? 0. I mean, I'm not going to question why it's giving it. I don't do that. I'm just kind of curious why it's giving a 0. 0. 1. Oh, it's a struct. Okay, well, that makes sense. I thought key value pair was a class, and I was wrong about that. And this is a good point. If I have a value type that has generic parameters, I can't do that because key value pair is going to be a value type. So I think I'm going to have to rethinking my things. Okay. 4. Oh, of course, yeah. 0 must mean value type. And then that's nullable, but that's a 0. Okay. You know what? Let's do that. We're going to do, actually, because my LCD is kicking in. Value type with. So we're just going to do a key value pair here. Just what I did before. Okay. A value type with generics. So in this case, what I should have is 1, 2, 3, 4. First one should be a 0. Second one should be a 0. Third one should be a 2, and then that should be a 0. Something's going to fail. I just don't know what's going to fail. Yeah, so I don't think that's right. I think I have to take that off, and then pull that back. So if I do that, it does. Okay, and then let's just run all the tests to make sure I didn't break anything. Which it might. I mean, could suddenly break something that I wasn't expecting. But then again, that's why you write and all good. Okay, so let me commit that. And there we go. So I may, yeah, this is done now. I still don't know if I should throw exception or not. I'm not sure. I might just leave it the way it is and do those and then handle that. So maybe I'll do that tomorrow or Monday. Tomorrow's a Sunday for me, so we'll see. But I am going to stop right now. Very happy with the progress on this. I'm recording this in mid-May, and you know, by the time .NET Core 3 finishes out and C# 8 is here, you know, some of these things might change a little bit. Who knows? So, but I'm glad I'm at this point, and I can actually now handle everything exactly the way I think I should be handling them with reference to non-nullable types. So I'm tired, and I'm probably going to go to bed soon. So thank you all for watching. Leave comments and questions below. See you in the next episode.